Hi, my name is Lourdes Santaballa, and I'm an IBCLC living in Puerto Rico. The way that I became a specialist in IYCF-E, or infant and young child feeding in emergencies, actually starts with the fact that I had applied for a lot of scholarships to go to different conferences, and that way I was able to connect and meet with other lactation professionals. So this is the first thing that I would say to people who are interested in doing this work, is that you need to get connected with other people, because you cannot do this alone. In 2017, I had been recruited by a group that included Safely Fed Canada and some BPOC activists in the United States to do an educational campaign called Safely Fed USA, where we were training people about infant and young child feeding in emergencies. And coincidentally, Hurricane Irma formed in the Caribbean in September of 2017, early September. We were affected by that hurricane, but mostly how Puerto Rico reacted to that hurricane was by sending a lot of our goods to the minor Antilles Islands, because we were generous people. And then we were really taken by surprise 2 weeks later when Hurricane Maria started, and we didn't have a lot of provisions on the island. Hurricane Maria was a Category 5 and ripped right through the middle of our island. We're about 1,000 miles away from the mainland United States, and we are part of the United States. If you know anything about U.S. law, any U.S. State or territory which is not attached to the mainland has to receive any goods from a U.S. port, unless it's a donation, like from a person. So let's say that I have a family member who lives in Dominican Republic and they send something to me, I can receive that in the mail. But if I want to order lactation supplies from Dominican Republic, it would have to be sent to the U.S. mainland, and then from the U.S. mainland come to the United States. And I think that's really important, because this is one of the reasons that heavy items like liquids, which would include liquid infant formula and water, are more difficult to come upon post-emergency. How did we handle things post-Maria? We did not have any cell phone signal. We did not have any electricity. And in most part of the island, it was that way for at least 2 weeks. And so we basically had to find our people. I was able to get signal by walking to the plaza of my town and putting my phone up in the air to try to get a signal. And that's how I was able to get some signals and started communicating with some of these people that I had met through the Safely Fed USA initiative that we had been doing. I felt that in that moment I had unique knowledge, thanks to Jodine Chase, Anjali Palmquist, Michelle Spencer Branco, Agustina Vidal, Norma Escobar, Brenda Reyes, Felicia Floyd. There are many people, Stacy. There's many people whose names I haven't mentioned, but that were very important because they were my lifeline. As a matter of fact, the organization Alimentacion Segura Infantil was registered online by Anjali Palmquist because I did not have access to internet in Puerto Rico. What did we do? The first thing that I did was go and visit shelters and try to find families and see if there was anybody who needed breastfeeding assistance. And I did not know about cold water sterilization, and that was information that was provided to me by my colleagues. The cold water sanitation method, I think, is very important. I often say to people, the apocalypse is coming, you need to buy bleach. I think bleach is a very important item to have. And the first thing that I did was just educate other people that wanted to help families and find out where families needed help. There were some police officers' wives in New Jersey that sent me some supplies, as well as the other lactation and IYCF-E specialists in the US, and people who were sending money that just organically gave us the possibility of creating an organization. And we got some seed money from an organization called Save the Children that came to Puerto Rico at that moment. And I want you to understand that we were devastated. We only had about 20% of our highways were working right after the hurricane. As I said, we were without electricity. And I would go visit families in their home. You know how a baby is born and sometimes the baby isn't latching, and the families are instructed to pump and give their babies their pumped milk. I would ask moms, are you taking out your milk? And they would say, yeah, at night when I turn on the generator. because we've become so far separated from our knowledge that a lot of people don't know about hand expression. I think this is an important thing to know, because as we talk about preparing, being prepared for a crisis or a possible disaster, it is very important that hand expression be a key part of education in any prenatal classes that you're giving, in any breastfeeding support groups, in any class that you're giving, even a pumping class. We must be teaching hand expression. It's not a bad idea to train other specialists also on what is cold water sanitation and the importance of keeping breastfeeding going and creating those spaces for that to happen. We need to have more relationships with the departments of health, whichever department is running the shelters, be it the Red Cross, or in the case of Puerto Rico, it's a joint effort between the Department of Housing and the Department of Education, because they use school buildings as our shelters here. And then the other thing that I would like to let you know is that the hurricane is not the only crisis or disaster that we've experienced in Puerto Rico. There have been hurricanes in the past. We also have had a financial crisis in Puerto Rico, which has caused somewhat of an exodus of people of reproductive age. We had the Zika crisis right before the hurricane, where the official political position or public health position was to recommend that families not have babies. And then finally, after the hurricanes, we had another hurricane. During the pandemic, we also had some earthquakes. Basically, our model has been to train communities to be able to be infant and young child feeding first responders, and also to have our kits. The kits that we have used involve the big plastic buckets, because that was what was donated to us, and we had bleach gallons that were donated to us by a bleach company. So we would give those out with syringes and with instructions. And I think in a future disaster, I really like the shoebox method that the SAFE team uses because of its portability, but it may be that you have to use what is donated to you, and that is what you use, because definitely the big 5-gallon buckets take up a lot of use. Our model has always been train people so that you are no longer indispensable, because you will not be able to go to see everybody. You may not be able to have a central team. We in Puerto Rico are spread out, and that is how we did it, and it worked for us. And we will adapt ourselves to any future situation that could occur. And the other thing that I want to reiterate is that your connection with other people outside of your community is going to be key, because they are your lifeline. As I mentioned, Anjali Palmquist incorporated our organization online. People from the US were sending us things. We relied on what we call the diaspora, which is Puerto Rican people outside on the main island or outside of Puerto Rico, but we relied on our allies, and these are your friends. And the other thing is, if you don't know something, we are here for you. There have been calls between the SAFE team and people during the LA wildfires. There is now a network of people that are constantly in communication, and they will be helpful. And I also want to state, sometimes it's difficult because we have to work with a lot of infant formula, and that is not our mission. I think that we can do all of these things and maintain true to the intent of the WHO code if we're doing one-on-one education, because babies who are formula dependent also need support. And I just think that we need to be adaptable. I don't know if I've said everything, but you can do it. You are the experts, and you can train people in your communities, and overall make sure that you are safe before you go and help others.